This is Today's Business Leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right, on today's show, I have Erin Pheil, and she is the founder of MindFix. And you can visit erinpheil.com, which I'll put the links in here a little bit later, and of course in the show notes. But welcome to the show, Erin.
Why, thank you. Lovely to be here.
So as always, I always like to ask people, when did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
I do not have one of those stories where I was out, as an 8-year-old selling lemonade and making money and hustling Smarties like in middle school or anything. I actually went to college, I went to grad school, and I set out to go find a job. And I graduated with a degree in digital media. And so I went to try and find some awesome digital agency that I could work for. And nobody would hire me. And I didn't understand why. And I saw like the low level of caliber that was out there, especially because I live up in the mountains. It's a small geographical area. There was only a handful of agencies. And I just kind of sat here and was like, nobody's hiring me. I can do so much better than all of them. I'm just going to do this myself. So it was just more of it wasn't this long drive that I always knew. It was just like, I'm going to do this. And so right after graduate school, I started my digital agency back in 2002. And that was it. That was how it happened. That was it.
That's very cool. I can relate because I started a local marketing company in 2011 because I was pissed at what was in the landscape of people quote unquote doing local news or doing coverage or doing anything for the community, and I just thought it sucked. So I was so mad one night that I launched the company.
There you go, right? Out of necessity.
And it kind of worked.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still here today. So. But yeah, so I could totally relate. So that's a great definition of entrepreneurship, I think, is seeing a problem and stepping up and solving it.
Pretty much.
Because employees, not that there's anything wrong with them, but the wrong part of the employee mindset is, oh, somebody else will take care of that. It's not my job.
Absolutely.
And that drives me totally insane. So 2002 to start a digital agency, that is right about when I started buying leads online and doing online marketing and like the very, very early SEO stuff, which is obviously not even on the same spectrum anymore.
It was the golden days. You just had to pop a few keywords in and write a couple sentences and you were like number one. It was so magical back then. Like anybody could be number one. Everybody could be number one. It was good for everybody.
So I thought I was brilliant at it, but I was not. It took me a while to actually figure out how it all worked. And as it changed, I learned a lot. But so 2002, you do that. Now catch us up from there to today. Give us the short history version of where you started there, and now you're doing something a little bit different.
You can fast forward all the way to 2000 and probably 15. That was just digital agency years of growing the business and pretty steady upwards growth, other than with the housing bubble explosion, which we took a huge tumble, recovered from that. But about, I'd say 4 years ago, 2014-ish, I started to get this sense like I could do something more. And it just it was like this nagging sense in the back of my head. And I went off and I did strategic coach, and I read all these books about what's my unique ability and my zone of genius, and maybe there's something more. Business was doing great. We were literally doubling each year, but there's still this sense after almost a decade and a half that I couldn't put words to it, but the sense that there was something more. Yeah. And it just kept growing. And then 2015, my world completely fell apart. All sorts of things happened with the business. After 15 years, we got a negative SEO attack. And so our rankings that we'd relied on for a decade and a half, within a week, completely disintegrated.
Wow.
We had a whole bunch of explosions happen at work. And then I personally one day woke up and suddenly I had chronic pain, and it was like, it got worse and worse and worse. It started as a twinge in my ankle, and my life pretty much became me going to doctors and therapists and practitioners and more doctors and surgeons. And suddenly I'm sitting in a brain surgeon's office and being told I need back surgery. Whereas, a week ago, I thought I was this healthy 30-something-year-old person with this great business. And then suddenly I have this like business with everything up in the air, and I feel like I can't go on, and I'm getting medications for pain and nerve meds that are messing with my mind. It was like the black period of my life, and lasted quite a while, and things just kept getting worse and worse and piling on top of each other, and more doctor's visits. And during that time, I really couldn't work, and I couldn't play, I couldn't bike, I couldn't snowboard, I couldn't have fun. I was in all this pain. And so I had a lot of extra time on my hands, and I found myself getting drawn into the world of trying to be able to fix myself, basically. I was paying tens of thousands of dollars and spending 5 days a week driving around the state trying to get help. And the pain and everything was getting so bad, I had to start then going to therapists, because then now my mind, then I was dealing with anxiety and depression on top of all of it. And everything just made it worse. Like, people were like, we're going to figure this out, and it's going to be a long journey. And I pretty much snapped and was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. Kind of like, back in 2002 when nobody could help me and nobody would hire me. And I'm sitting here going, this isn't working. I'm just going to do this on my own. I kind of got to the same space, about a year ago, after 2 years of trying to get help from everybody else. And I said, I'm going to do this. And I went back to my passion, which is psychology. I flew around the country. I did trainings, and I started seeing all these pieces of this puzzle that were floating by themselves. And I basically took all the pieces, put them together into my own methodology and my own kind of custom blend, and found something that works 10 times better than any of them in isolation. So I fixed myself, went back, started building the agency again, still had that sense that it's not quite right, but I'll keep doing it. And then on the side, because it was so much fun, I started helping colleagues and friends and other business owners. And I was so pumped and doing so much more on the side that finally, at the beginning of this year, I was like, you know what? This is what that angst was. This is what that sense of there's something more. Like, I can change lives. I can help other people. I can do this. I don't have to do the agency route for the rest of my life. And so that's how MindFix started this year. And I thought it would be the side project for a couple years, because we've just landed some huge projects for the agency. Things are going well. But MindFix is exploding. And I think that will probably be very quickly, I will be transitioning almost full time, 100% to that. So that's my story.
That's very cool. And I love psychology. I'm sure I'm not anywhere near as well read or, anything like that as you, but it super fascinates me. Because like somebody said to me the other day on the show, they're like, entrepreneurship is 80% mindset and 20% what you can do.
It is. You see so many brilliant people, just absolutely brilliant people who are so much smarter than me. But so the mindset isn't there to be an entrepreneur. So it's not within their realm of possibility. It's not even something that they consider.
And I'm reading, I read The Rise of Superman a month ago. And then I'm reading Stealing Fire. And
I haven't read either of those.
You will absolutely love them.
Okay.
And where I'm at in the second one right now is they're talking about how science and like spirituality and mysticism, not necessarily religion, but are meshing together in our world right now. We're finally realizing, and I actually had a call this morning with somebody who does trauma-focused yoga and Reiki. Think about that. And she's a psychologist. She's a therapist.
Very cool.
So it's like really interesting. Like, it's very interesting to me how through the universe and whatever the fuck's going on out there, or whoever's in charge or not in charge, that these things like are more and more, the more I push into mindset and all that weird shit, and more and more everything like lines up sequentially and perfectly. And so if you would have asked me 6 months ago if I believed in manifestation, I'd say no way. And today I'm like, absolutely. And so I'm like on this rapid path, and that's why I'm super excited to talk to you. So,
Cool.
because I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's a lot of fun.
Cool.
So I don't even know where to start, but because I don't know anything about this space except for I'm just running around like in the dark or like a kid in the backyard without any clothes on in the sprinkler. But how do you realize that you're not self-aware of these problems? Like, and then how do you identify that you're in the darkness and the black period of your life or your day or whatever? And then how do we solve our own problems? Because you said something really, really interesting, which I 1,000,000% agree and believe with, is that you said, I figured out how to fix myself. And we all have the power to fix ourselves. And as soon as we take that ownership back and that control, I think that's step one, but that's my opinion. So I'd rather hear you because you actually have worked on this and had a much worse situation than I ever have, it sounds like.
Okay. So I find that the first thing that's needed, not shockingly, you mentioned it, like there's this awareness piece, right? So when I first started doing all of this testing and going, I think I've got something here. And I just started grabbing like everybody in my circle, didn't matter where, like people, like my biking friends and like people at like my yoga class and this. And I was just like, you want some help? I'm going to help you. And I found out very quickly, because I just want to test subjects. I need to test. I'm going to test.
I'm going to help you.
I'm going to work on you. I'm going to make you better. I'm going to fix you. Like, and very quickly I realized that there was a very clear line about who could be helped and who could see progress and who couldn't. And the biggest piece really is awareness, because there were people who needed help more than most other people, who were miserable, who were in toxic relationships, who had incredibly low self-esteem, who didn't feel as good as everybody else, even though they were just as talented, just as smart, right?
Right.
And yet, I would find that if they had no awareness of their issue, like they just assume like, this is how life is, this is how I am, there's no problems, this life is just kind of shitty and this is how it is. Kind of very much employee victim mindset, the world happens to me. Didn't matter what I did, I could not like break through that. If there was no awareness and no desire to level up or take things to the next level, you can't help somebody who doesn't want to help themselves, right? It's like you can lead a horse to water type situation. So I found that out the hard way after months of being like, no, I can help everybody. Like I have this magic wand, it doesn't matter. Absolutely not. So awareness is number one. And awareness really starts broad. And it's started like I had, like the sense that something's not quite right. Like I'm not in this state of flow. I'm not in my zone of genius. Things tend to not go smoothly. There's all this resistance. I'm working really, really, really hard, and I'm taking like a step forward. Like I'm busting my ass and I'm staying up and I'm working 7 days a week and I'm doing everything that they say I should be doing, and I'm on Facebook and I'm doing ads and I'm taking care of my clients. And then we had like a 4% revenue increase this year. Or, I'm doing all of this.
Or a negative in revenue.
Or negative, that too. Or I'm doing all of this and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not happy. So there's some sense that things aren't right and that they could be so much better and there's another level, right? Like that awareness and that kind of like, something's not right is really the first step, that something's not going well. And not everybody has that. Some people just assume like that's life and there's nothing that can be done. So the people who have that awareness are the ones who are right to be able to take things to the next level. And honestly, the first step for most people is just trying to fill in their gaps with some knowledge and skills, because sometimes you're just missing something. Sometimes you're a bad writer, or sometimes you're just bad working with clients, and you just need a few skills to fix your issues. And sometimes so people go get a coach, they go take a course, and they're good, right? And then they level up, and then suddenly their revenue increases and they're happier and they're feeling pumped, and that's all it takes. What I've seen though is when people kind of go and fill in the knowledge gap, fill in the skills gap, fill in the support gap. So they've read all the books and they've taken all these courses and they've gone to the seminars and they've flown to the 3-day things and they do the challenges and they've tried meditating and they've done all this stuff. They know what to do. They get it. But they're still like hitting the ceiling and something's not right. Then it's usually them. Then it's usually they're the ones that are holding themselves back, not a gap in knowledge, not a gap in skills. It's usually something about them, and it falls into the world of subtle self-sabotage in a way, and it's more of like they have some invisible barriers that they've put up in front of themselves that they don't see. And that's what's holding them back. And another coach, another course, another webinar, video training, another $2,000, whatever is not going to fix the problem. Like fast forward a month, they're going to have all this new skills, but they're going to kind of be in the same place. Does that make sense?
It does.
I'm not sure that face is for it, but does it make too much sense?
No. I'm sorry. I'm really absorbing it all, and I'm finding it very interesting. So I'm just absorbing it. So far, step 1 is you have to be self-aware, which I have a thought or comment about. And then step 2 of what you see in this journey is people like realize that they have some problems and issues, and so they go acquire a bunch of skills, knowledge, whatever, and that doesn't solve the problem. Mm-hmm. It should, and it feels like it should, and we're like, yeah, I totally know how to do this now, and we're still feeling this inner dissonance where it's not working. And then we're there. So okay, keep going. so then what?
So the thing that has to be checked at that point that I've seen, that I've learned, I was missing this for a while, is people say they want these really specific goals. They want to make X amount of money. They want this many clients. They want this many days off a week. They have these goals, but they keep reading these books and, froze. They keep reading these books or going and trying to get these resources and skills, and it doesn't work. One thing that has to be checked at that point is commitment, because that is another piece of the equation that doesn't get
talked about
like on people's radar, because it's so easy, and it's double easy if you're on Facebook, to want things and to say you want things. I want to make 10 figures. I want to have 2% body fat, or whatever it is, like 9% body fat. I want to be ripped, and I only want to work 4 hours a week. I want all this stuff. So it's super easy to say you want things, but you have to make sure and check that there's a serious drive and a serious commitment. And commitment has a bunch of different factors, such as what are you willing to give up? How much time are you willing to invest in this? What are you willing to literally say no to and push away forever? There's so many pieces related to commitment. People have to actually wonder and start to ask themselves, am I not reaching my goals? Am I not getting where I want because I'm actually not committed? And I just like to say that I want something. Like I want to dream about the $5 million, but I really don't want to do anything in order to get there. So commitment's another component that has to kind of be checked off the list. If there's awareness and it's not a knowledge or skills gap, is there commitment? And if there's commitment as well, and somebody's like, no, I am serious. Like, this is my passion. I want to go here. I'm going to do what it takes to get there. You can almost be guaranteed that it is just it's internal factors that are holding them back at this point, because it's not awareness, it's not knowledge, it's not skills, it's not commitment. All of those factors are set there, lined up. There should be serious forward progress. So that's when you go, okay, there's something internal going on. You're not able to see it. Let's figure out what's going on there.
I like, sorry, I'm not, I don't know if I'm engaging right today, but I'm like really, really absorbing this. This is super, super interesting to me.
Good.
So I'm just going to keep asking you these hard questions. Maybe they're hard to me anyway.
Okay.
So that I really like the progression here. Awareness, and I'm going to say it over and over so I get it.
Yes.
And then skills.
Knowledge and skills. Yep.
Acquisition, and then total commitment. And then we realize if things aren't happening, it's like we've at some point been given or created or something happened where we have this mental wall that we can't cross. And that makes sense, which we'll get into here more. My question is, because I'm getting like some body sensation yeses about what I need to say, but I really want to hear what you want to have to say. As we grow and graduate through these levels, as we fix the mindset, as we realize that we are totally committed to being, the 8-figure, 10-figure business person or whatever our big thing is it going to get easier if we fix mindset, or is it just going to get more rewarding because it's more challenging and fun?
Oh, good question. I have an answer that's actually contrary to what a lot of people say.
Okay.
There are a lot of books and a lot of people that I follow who insist that it doesn't get easier. Like it just doesn't get easier. It's always super hard work. I have found out both through my dark period and in the period I'm in now, in multiple ways, it actually gets exponentially easier.
Okay.
Like when you're on the right track and you take care of the right pieces of mindset, for lack of a better word, I like to call it like when you clear your mental lens, things get exponentially easier. And I'll give two examples. So when I was going through this period the last 3 years and I was having all sorts of health issues, and I'm trained on my mountain bike, and I went from being able to go out and doing these 7-8 hour big rides to I'd go out and do a half-hour ride and I'd fall over and off the side of the road and I couldn't even like pedal downhill lightly. And I'd be exhausted and I'd start crying and go, I don't know what's wrong with me. And people are like, it's always going to feel hard. Even when you get fit, the hills feel just as hard. They feel just as hard. And I kept going, no, this isn't right. And figured out what was going on. There was a medication issue. There was a nutrient deficiency issue. There was a whole bunch of issues going on. So once I fixed those, the hills still felt hard, like everybody said, but it was a different type of hard, and it was an enjoyable hard. And it wasn't this, I want to give up and this is so frustrating and I fucking hate this hard. Like that went away. And when everything was set up right and my nutrients were right and my medication was right and my heart rate was right, it was like a good kind of hard work. And it was enjoyable. And the same thing is going on now with the business. So for the last year with my agency, I brought on like one of the top leadership coaches. We were working on systems and structure with my team. We were bringing in this methodology of hands-off leadership so that my team could take ownership and take a lot of the work themselves. And as I was working on it, even though I had everything lined up, I was working in the wrong direction. My mindset wasn't there. I hadn't cleared my mental lens, and it felt wrong. Like every morning I woke up and I was cranky and I didn't want to do it. And felt like I was pushing, just like petting a cat backwards. Like, yes, you can do it, but it just feels wrong. It's just like going against the grain, and it accumulated. And it felt not just like hard work, but it was heavy and contractive, and I got more and more sour as the months went on. Even though if you looked at the work and you read like a list of the type of work I did each day, you'd go, that doesn't look too bad. It was like eating me away inside. So when I cleared out my lens, which allowed me to actually focus and understand, oh, this is the right direction I should be focusing in, like clear lens, right direction, it was almost like I was floating down a river instead of like trying to paddle, like swim upstream. It literally was the difference between hard work, hard effort, and just kind of floating and course correcting. Everything has felt easier. Like my happiness has gone up. My joy has gone up. My sense of ease has gone up. things don't feel awful, and it's like a positive upward spiral instead of like a quagmire and getting sucked down by quicksand. So hard work, yes. Like I don't just like drink margaritas every day and write one email and then everything's like fine. But it's the kind of hard work that you enjoy doing. Like it's just fun and it doesn't feel like hard work, even though people on the outside might go, she's working hard. It doesn't feel like it. Does that help?
It super helps.
Okay, good.
So I'm going to ask you two different questions because around the same thing, and maybe it will help.
Okay.
Let's keep having this conversation. It sounds like what you're saying to me is that when focus and motivation and emotion are misguided, it's not the best word, or misplaced or misdirected or wrong, we'll just say that, that all activity becomes torturous.
Yes. I found that out the hard way. Yeah, if you're just headed in the wrong direction, you're like, it's like there's a path you could be following, right? And that's, so many of us are just like bushwhacking, like trying to get to the same thing with like a machete, going through the jungle, and there's like this clear path. And it's like, this is how I should be doing it. I've run this agency for 15 years, so I should be able to grow it. I should have, everything's lined up, like it's how it should be, and this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what all the blog posts and my coach is telling me I should do. So it's like this brute force, hard work effort, when it's like the whole time there is a path of least resistance or flow or ease that, and it's just a lot easier to see where that is when your mindset and your mental lens is clear. Because when it's cloudy, you're clogged up with all sorts of like old mental programming and things that you should be doing, old beliefs about who you are and your sense of identity. You know, I'm an agency owner and I'm an athlete and I'm this. So of course that means what's within the realm of what I can do looks like this big, and that's all I can do. And when you clear that out, what's possible is almost everything. And you get a much better sense or read of like, that's what I want to do. Instead of being like, this is all I have. When all your mental lens is so dirty, you can't see much of anything. You feel like the world is this big and you're forced to work in a certain direction and do certain things.
So let me go down a little bit of a rabbit trail, because I think this is what you're saying, and it will help me understand, which is kind of the only reason I do the show. But no, actually, because I think it's another way to think it through for people. So let's start with thinking that you and I have this basic belief or premise that we like the outdoors, because it sounds like you like the outdoors as much as I do. I grew up on, my parents were caretakers for some very wealthy people, and we had like this 1,000-acre preserve behind our house. So nature like flows through my blood. I love it. Like if I want to get peace and clarity, I go for a walk.
Yeah.
And so our basic belief will say, and what we've been told is that it's healthy to get outside. It's good to be in nature. Like that's a good thing to do. And let's pretend for a minute. Oh, and let's say our goal is to go out into the woods and build a log cabin, which I did when I was a kid. Let's say that that's what we've defined as success, because we're going to enjoy nature, we're going to do what we love, and we're going to create something of value and of meaning. And let's throw one other little factor into the story here. For some reason, somehow, we were told as kids or at some part of our life that the only way to fully enjoy nature is to do it on the darkest nights when there's no moon. And we have to go into the woods and build this cabin and do this thing. And we're so, in our heart, we love nature and we want to do this thing and we're just all about it. But by the third year of, having just horrible experiences in the dark, we just question everything. And then we realize, or you show up or this thing happens by self-awareness or wherever we get there, somebody tells us, you're supposed to do that during the day. And then we go out in the day and it's still hard work and there's still bugs in the woods. And you still have to sometimes there's a limb across the path or whatever, but it's like this joyous recreation of life because we realize that we are just doing it the wrong way.
I love that story. I'm going to steal that. That's a beautiful, beautiful story because that literally parallels what I have experienced and what all of our clients experience, where they think things have to be done in a certain way or should be a certain way, and this is how the world is. And it really is as limiting. Oh my God, I love that story. It really is as limiting as going, I love nature and I love to do this, but I've been taught like I have to do it only on when there's no moon and that's it. And this is the only time. And it's like, when you clear the lens and you get rid of the old mental trash and programming, right, that breaks it apart, and it's like, you can work on it whenever you like, including in the daytime, right? And you can use mosquito repellent on top of it. You can go out and life
doesn't have to suck.
Life. It feels like you're living a totally different life. It exponentially gets better, not incrementally. It's incremental would be like, I can work on it when there's, a little bit of a moon, like that's incremental. That opens, maybe you double the amount of time, but exponentially 10 times more, 20 times, 100 times more, right? Like totally different world, different ball game you're playing in.
Right as day.
It is like that. That's a great story.
Yeah, no, it just kind of came to me, and like, this is really interesting to me, and it's super important too to me, because I think everybody needs to really, really, really understand that this is possible. So now that we understand it's possible, and hopefully what you and I are, conversating about here is opening people's eyes to that. Now that my awareness is there, that I'm like, because I think people that follow and that we hang out with together, like, are self-aware. We'll just make that assumption for today. I have a whole mirrors in your world thing that I want to talk about maybe some other time, but we'll just pretend everybody's self-aware. So now that I'm self-aware, and I am really committed, like I've been going out in the woods for 3 years in the dark. I'm not like, and I've acquired all the tools and skills, and like, I even heard about this thing called bug spray, but I know that I'm not doing something right. What's next? Because I know that I'm in the dark, but I don't know about the light.
Right.
How do we cross that? Because it's literally a light switch, but I don't know where it is.
So I just finished this is really fresh in my mind. I just finished a training on this, like less than a week ago. So I can share the link at the end of this too. For people who are interested.
For sure.
And what I taught is, most people basically, there's this, we want these results. So we take an action and we hope we get the results. And if it doesn't work, we take a different action and maybe we get slightly different results, and we keep taking action, right? But there's so many things out there that impact the actions that we take and the results that we get. And you can take different actions. You can work on different pieces of the equation, your physical health or your emotions or the thoughts that you have or the drugs that you're taking, whatever. You can work on all these pieces and you'll get slightly different results. What I found for getting exponential results, like the clearest path, the easiest path, the paths where people see the most consistent exponential results instead of incremental results, is kind of a 1, 2, 3 in this order. The first step really is clearing out your metaphorical mental lens. We all have that. Like, we see an event happen, and in the training I use, like, there's a dog running at me as an event. But depending on how dirty my mental lens is, I may experience that event in a totally different way. Like, if I have beliefs that animals are dangerous and all dogs are evil and things like that, my lens is dirty, I may experience a dog running at me as my life is in danger, right? My lens is clear, and I've worked on that part. I experience a dog running at me, and I get to be curious and go, is it angry? Is it playful? Is this my new best friend? Am I going to go make best friends with the owner over there? And, oh, is it lost? I might make $1,000 because I take it home. There's all sorts of opportunities. Okay. So the first step really is working on clearing out one's mental lens, because that's what opens up possibilities that didn't exist before. That's what clears out the clutter and the noise that makes it difficult for us to figure out, what should I be learning? What skills do I need? What knowledge do I need? What's the next step in my life? Like, if we don't take care of that mental lens, everything else is just a guessing game. And so mental lens, step 2 is, once your lens is clear, and we'll go back to that in a second, but once your lens is clear, suddenly you can start following what I call like hell yeses. You start understanding like, no, this doesn't excite me. This is what inspires me. I know I've been doing this for 20 years. This is what pumps me up. This is what I want to wake up and do every morning. This is what like gives me energy instead of drains my energy, right? And you start following those, because suddenly when your mental lens is dirty, you can't tell what's exciting or inspiring. And you're up here all the time. There's noise. There's the shoulds and the habits and the identity, and everything's clouding it out. And you're just going from like what you think you should be doing to what you think you should be doing. And it's just messy and confusing. And you're like upside down in the washing machine, just trying to do the next best step. When your mental lens is clear, everything changes, and you're sitting there going, you know what, this drains me. I want to do this. And it's almost like that path, you know, I was saying we're out there with the machete, like in the jungle. The path really becomes so much easier to stay on, where it's like, this is easy to walk down. I'm not even have to use my machete. Like, it's just easy, right?
Yeah.
Once the path is clear and we have this sense of this is kind of the direction that is going to take me where I want to go, suddenly the knowledge we need to fill in the gaps and the skills we need to become better at what we do, it's all obvious what to spend our time on. Like this whole list of 50 books that people are like, I have 100 books. It's like, yeah, you're going to read those and you'll be smarter, and then what? I would rather have a stack of 8 books going, once I finish these, it is going to give me exactly what I need to get to the next level. This is really powerful. So I save and I make the best use of my time and my energy, and I suddenly understand. So as I gain more knowledge and skills, that helps me move down my path, helps me serve other people more, learn more, and then I understand, oh, now I need this skill, and it's this really nice cycle. And that's where you get the exponential results, because you're spending your time on the right things, you're learning the right things, gaining the right skills, that's moving you in the right direction, that pumps you up, that keeps you excited. You can only be moving down this path because your mental lens is clear. And now it's easy for you to understand what drains you and what excites you and where you should be going. Because it all comes back to this mental lens. When this is dirty, which is most people, most of the time, it's just, you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh my God, this one day. I don't, it's like, well, what drained you? It's like all of it. And it's just the sense of like fighting through life and working really hard. And it doesn't have to be hard. It really doesn't. A bit of that mental lens clearing and everything shifts around you. And then everything down the chain shifts and you get that sense of ease, which is just never there when this is kind of clogged up.
I got it. So how do we clear the lens?
Well, let me pull out my infomercial, because people need to work with me in order to do that. That's kind of what I do, right? That's what I figured out. Mm-hmm. If people want to do it super fast and really efficiently, then they can come work with me. I do have a couple different programs. They're not cheap. Couple months, lens is cleared, you're on your way, permanent, right? For people who are of the DIY persuasion, a mental lens really is made up of, in my working model at this point, a few different things. Old beliefs and programming. So basically what we believe to be true about the world. The world is difficult, mistakes and failure are bad, I'm not good enough, all the kind of stuff that part of us believes to be true, not the intellectual part of us, the part of us believes to be true, the stuff that kind of haunts us and sits in the background and kind of whispers, you suck, and this is going to be hard, they're going to hate you, all those kinds of doubts. Those, people go, you have to go through life and fight those. It's bullshit. They can be eliminated permanently, like they can be gone. They can be tossed in the garbage. It is not something you have to battle. Okay. That creates resistance. So beliefs, conditionings is another thing. So we get conditioned over time, just like Pavlov's dogs, right? Like ring a bell, you start salivating. People have all sorts of conditionings. Like one of the most common would be people are conditioned to experience fear whenever there's a possibility of rejection, for example. And they link those two together since they're young. And so there's fear. And so breaking up the conditionings helps clear the mental lens. Neurochemicals, I know this one very well. Like you can work all you want on the mental lens, but if you are on a wrong medication or something that's messing with your neurochemistry, it doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't really matter. So I threw that one in there after I figured out all the work in the world can't combat,
the wrong
drugs.
I have personally experienced that.
Yes, it's not pleasant. And then your subconscious is a big player in your mental lens. So things like meditation and mindfulness can help. They tend to be temporary, like they're not permanent, where you meditate for 3 months and then that lasts the rest of your life. Whereas you can work on things with programming and beliefs that is permanent. So that's more of the higher effort route. Meditation is always great as a DIY effort. It helps some. It doesn't fix root problems, but it helps some. And then stress levels, absolutely. Like we work with a lot of people to reduce accumulated subconscious stress, which just can accumulate over years and years and years and years and years and years. And if it's not processed through the REM phase of sleep, if it's not getting processed through adequate sleep in the REM phase, and basically we say that you have a stress bucket. And once your stress bucket gets really high, even if you've done a bunch of mental lens clearing, if it's really high, it only takes a few drops for it to like overflow, and you're into reactivity and fight or flight, and your lower primitive brain is starting to go, no, this is not okay, you're in danger. So you have to really take care of your subconscious, your lower brain, your stress levels. Those are the main pieces I've found of the mental lens, that when you address those as a package and you permanently get rid of the gunk that's in there, throw it out, and you address the other elements, you don't have to work on all these other pieces of the equation. You don't have to work on productivity or habits or procrastination. Like a lot of those things just fix themselves. That is the high leverage, low effort route to go. Instead of, I'm going to work on this and this and this and these 50 different things to make myself better. You can work on this one part and watch almost everything else exponentially get better easily and effortlessly without a lot of work.
It's totally resonating with me. It makes a lot of sense. I know, I'm just listening, but
took me a really long time to figure it out. Like I have always been I always had the belief that, everything in life must be hard, and you have to work really, really hard to be successful. And if you haven't worked hard, you don't deserve it. You don't earn it. Like that whole, grew up with my dad, my grandparents coming from Nazi Germany, and everything is just difficult and struggle. And that was my upbringing. And so it took me pretty much like almost 4 decades to figure all this out and go, wow, it doesn't have to be hard. Like I was wrong. I was really wrong. This is pretty freaking cool.
That's so awesome. Can you bring some definition to the difference between beliefs and programming? Because it sounds similar to me, and I don't know if I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Programming is a generic term that I use for all of the way that the word should kind of gets pushed into our head. And that comes from rituals and habits that we've gathered over the years, and what our parents have told us is real about the world.
Like societal norms almost.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a really big, huge, generic, like blanket term. Like some people grew up in military families, and there's this like, you make the bed and everything is really neat and perfect. They don't necessarily have the belief that I must have a neat bed in order to be a successful person, right? Like that belief isn't there, but that mental programming of like that should, and this is how things are done, has kind of gotten pushed in there as this permanent part of themselves, and has been wrapped into their interpretation of what reality is and how things should be. So the programming is almost this code of how we see the world and how things should be. Beliefs are a main component of that mental programming. Beliefs are, this is how things are. This is how I am. This is what all failure is bad. That's a belief.
Okay.
So
it's almost like, yeah, that's perfect. So it's almost like intentional and probably more unintentional habits that we form without any core belief behind it. It's almost like changing our physiology changes our emotional state. It's like those two pieces together. Okay. Cool.
And the programming, it comes in the form of the conditionings and general senses that you get, and relationships and just patterns that you've experienced. It's just this general, like, this is how my brain works now, and this is how I think. And beliefs are just a main part of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have so much to think about.
Good.
I don't even know what to ask you.
You should watch my training. Everything will become clear. Watch my training.
Okay. Perfect. So we'll definitely do that. And I would love to have you come back, because I think we just kind of framed the conversation, and we probably should keep having the conversation.
Cool.
But just so we don't spend the next 2 days here together, let's move forward a little bit, and then we can do that. So I think this is all phenomenally brilliant. And also I feel like you're putting this together in a much, much different way than I've ever seen before. And I want to take a minute and like celebrate and congratulate you and thank you for going through the darkness, because like I have been through the darkness, and it's hard. And so it's like, it means a lot to me that you've been willing to do the work to try to save other people too. And I just want to acknowledge that.
I appreciate it. I almost did not make it. There were many days when I was sitting there and hopped up on nerve medication that had literally like side effects of suicidality and irrational fears. Like irrational fears was like a side effect of some of the stuff that I was taking, and just kind of going like, what's wrong with me? How can I ever help people if there's something, and I really was very close to not making it many times. And it was almost like, felt like a test. Like during that time I was hit by a semi on the interstate. My entire car like completely crashed, and is destroyed. And somehow I walked away. Like just so many things over the course of 3 years where I almost didn't. And I tried to get help for this same stuff from other people. And it just never made sense to me. And I couldn't wrap my head around it in a way that made sense. So many people would be like, just follow what you love. But I'd be sitting there going, but I need to work hard and I need to achieve things. And I've had an agency and I'm a friggin' athlete. I don't know what I love. I'm like compelled to do things. I feel driven to do this. Is that the same thing as love? And I don't know what's right. And nobody could explain it to me in a way that made any sense. So I figured maybe I can break it down into a different model, and maybe there's other people out there like me who could use an alternative explanation of how this stuff actually fits together. And so it's actually really joyful to be back and out of that period and able to help other people. And it's the craziness is, if I hadn't had gone through that, like I would never wish that on any other human being, no matter how much I dislike them in the world.
Yeah.
Had I not gone through that, I'd probably still be sitting there waking up every morning trying to build my agency and make it bigger, and slowly like being on this 20-year downward track of feel like it wouldn't have been this intense 3-year horrific period of like death and awfulness and darkness. It would have been like a slow death towards like my grave, like a slow march where I end up just burned out and unhappy about life and not really contributing much to the world except some amazing websites here and there. And this is so much better. So much better. I love it.
Well, I love it too. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very nice of you.
I mean it. So thank you. So before I go off on some other long tangent, which would be tons of fun, but we'll do another day together with everybody in the audience too. Just to make sure I have it correct, I know people can just sit down with you for like 15 minutes or whatever it is to see if it makes sense, right?
I have an application on our site that kind of, so the website is mindfixgroup.com, and there's a page on there with the results where you can see the kind of results that people get. We are still running at 100% success rate at this point with all of our clients in the signature program. There is an apply page on the site that kind of lists out who's a good fit, who's not a good fit, and it takes you to a really short application that we're really strict about who we take on, because we only take on people if we go, yes, 150% we can help them out, because we want to keep our success rate super high. So we filter really hard. So there's an initial form, it's pretty short, and if that gets through our filter, then we'll hop on a call with you and let you know if we can help.
Okay, cool.
And we have a second, actually, as of less than 5 days ago, we are doing a beta run of something that we call Ignite Breakthrough, which is just like a 2-week process and not a multi-week experience for people who have like one pressing issue, like this nagging sense of my whole life, I've never felt important and it's impacting me this way, or something that's just like,
super targeted.
You could get rid of this one thing for me, everything would change. And we realized there were some people out there who didn't necessarily think they need the full experience. And so we have this Ignite Breakthrough, and we're taking on a really limited number of people for those, I think about 4 to 6 maybe each month. And the only link to that is actually in the training, which I'll give you a link to, and we can post after the video is over.
Fantastic. So everybody definitely check everything out that we'll be sharing here in the comments and in the show notes. I am going to tell the entire world about you, Erin, or try at my best anyway. And I just really thank you for the time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun to be here.
Awesome. We'll definitely have you back soon.
Okay.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.